Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Through the Photographer's Lens. I am Urvi Kothari, the marketing head of Tawat Gallery, and today I'm in conversation with an avid photographer, a travel enthusiast, and a person whose photographs speak way louder than his words. I'm in conversation with the none other than Mr. Anurag Banerjee. Hi, Anurag, how have you been?
Hi, Urvi. Thank you so much for having me on this call. I've been as well as I can be, I suppose. Hope you've been well too.
Thank you so much. I'm doing very well. Just before we start the interview, here's a short introduction for Anurag. Anurag Banerjee is an independent photographer from Shillong based in Bombay. He's a freelance who works in a wide array of genres, including portraiture, food and lifestyle, travel, and editorial, and many more. His personal work is something he takes more time with and likes to explore an idea over time to see how it evolves. His works have been appreciated on multiple publication platforms, including Better Photography, PIX Quarterly, Caravan Magazine, Mint Lounge, and many more. And just for all our fascinating audiences, we've got some amazing prints by Anurag on display on Through the Lens, from his travel diaries to Georgia and Armenia. So without any further ado, let's get into the conversation. I'm really grateful to Anurag for joining us today and sharing some insightful experiences.
My pleasure.
Okay, so the first question that we have for the day is that as we are quarantined and all of us are going back to our nostalgic memory lanes, so if you got a chance to go back and roll time, which one place would you visit and why?
So where the place that I long for, like I wish I could be home, which is back in Shillong. But if I had to go back to a place that I have visited, I think I would, if not Bombay, of course, I would love to go back and meet my friends, meet my people in Bombay. But if not Bombay, I'd like to either be in Delhi or Kashmir right now to meet the people there. So yeah, I think I have a bunch of places like most of us. But yeah, if I had to go to just one answer, I wish I was with my parents and my dog in Shillong.
Long. In fact, I read up on your ongoing project where you're redefining the notion of home because you have been born in Shillong and you have a house in Shillong. So would you like to share a little bit about that project?
It's a personal project. I wouldn't say redefine the idea of home. It's a quest. It's searching for home.
Yes.
It's kind of it's a body of work which I've done over the period of 6 years, through which I explore the relationship that I have with my parents, our dog, and the landscape of Shillong. And what I like to say about this project is that while it's photographed in Shillong, it's primarily made in Bombay. In the sense, so a lot of that work is essentially about me longing for home while I am not at home. So so through these various things, I try to explore my home, and through that the further idea of home, of where the way I like to see it is, where is home wherever I am not. Essentially that, yeah.
That's in fact a very beautiful thought, and as you speak about exploring your home being in Bombay, this just reminds me of a beautiful artworks by late Zarina Hashmi. If you've heard about her, she's an artist.
Right, of course.
All her life, she's just been redefining and trying to identify that quest for home, especially after going through the whole partition. That's a beautiful.
Of course.
Uh,
Yes.
Moving on, today, as we are confined within the four walls of our house and where social distancing has become the utmost norms for us, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you just when you just think of the idea of travel?
The first thing that comes to my mind when I think of travel is probably the gray cloud that lies ahead. For instance, like everything is kind of foggy right now, and we have no idea what things are going to be like when we go ahead. So while travel is also of to do with longing, and I wish I could travel, and etc., etc. But it's also mildly concerning right now for what lies ahead in store for the world going forward. Really,
Correct. I,
yeah.
to just sum it up, it could just be like every cloud has a silver lining, and I'm sure everything is going to be perfectly well one day post the pandemic.
Fingers are crossed. Fingers are
Yes, yes,
definitely crossed.
totally. So
Yeah.
we've got some amazing photographs from Georgia on our ongoing show.
Uh-huh.
Would you like to
Uh-huh.
share some interesting anecdote or encounter with local people, or probably a cultural experience while you were traveling and documenting this beautiful location?
So as I mentioned in one of our emails, I think is that so even though I had gone to Vietnam earlier for a shoot, essentially this was the first time I went abroad with a really close friend of mine, and this was the first time for me experiencing a culture that is so vastly different from ours, and be it language, be it people. I think overall, I and it was not a super long trip, so we did Georgia and Armenia both within the span of a fortnight. And so a lot of the time that we did spend there, I I just spent in awe of this new place, and I tried to experience it to my fullest. What apart from the landscape, I would say, which obviously really caught my eye, and me coming from Shillong, I have a great affinity towards winter. And my friend and we traveled there in the month of March, so it was still towards the end of their winter, so it was still very nice and cold, and the landscape was snow covered and all of that, and desolate. Apart from that, I was also very taken by their food, which largely consists of a lot of bread and cheese. And well, that's paradise for for someone like me, you know.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing.
Mhm.
So, moving on to the next question. As a viewer, almost in love with a lot of your photographs, especially the ones where you've got this still car in the middle of a vast, beautiful landscape. So,
Mhm.
as a viewer, I see almost a certain stillness and solitude that urges the viewers to connect with every detail of the landscape. Like for example,
Mhm.
you've got the photograph where you have the red car, and then there's this beautiful landscape of snow-clad mountains in the background, and almost a faint bridge. And there's a layering
Mhm.
with everything. Your photograph just does justice to every smallest detail of that location, like so momentarily captured. So, what was the
Mhm.
thought process that was going on in your mind at that point that led you to select that perfect frame in a mesmerizing, beautiful landscape?
Thank you so much for all the nice things that you've said. Just one small anecdote though, that car that you see framed within that little thing, it's not actually parked, it's a passing car. So what
Yes.
I was very fascinated by in Georgia and Armenia also, both the cars that you see, the red car as well as the car, and they were both Armenia.
Yeah.
And they have this old Soviet vehicle there called the Lada. And that's the car that you see in those two photographs. And it's just so it's so old worldly, that car. And you see like about 70 to 80% of the cars on the road are those Ladas. And I was really very taken by that. I found them to be really pretty, and like they fit really well into that landscape. Going I mean, addressing your question of why I photograph the whatever I photograph a certain way, I would say I would go back to my roots of being raised in a place like Shillong. I naturally gravitate towards that thing. So also like there's also I digress a little bit in going to my journey as a photographer so far. So maybe had I traveled to these places a few years back, when I was just beginning out, as when I was just starting out my career as a photographer, I would probably photograph this differently. I would probably photograph a lot of people um, because a large part of travel is the people that you meet. But of late, through my personal journey as a photographer and all the things that I'm encountering in my life, I've sort of moved away from photographing people from a street sort of a scene. I can't bring myself to photograph that way before, even though I have an entire body of work which is essentially, its core is in street photography. So because I can't bring myself to photograph people in that way, I gravitated towards towards the landscape and the things and objects, as you had put it. And that became my connection to that place, to this new surrounding that I found myself in. And the vastness, the vastness of the landscape, or the way I choose to photograph, it's something that I sort of intrinsically believe about myself, that is what I naturally gravitate to, and that is what I end up photographing more often than not.
That's
Yeah.
a really beautiful thought. In fact, a very interesting fact that I noticed was that all of your photographs are untitled. I think your photographs
Yeah.
are so strong that they really speak for themselves. You do not have the need to really describe them in words, and that's why I described you in the start of the interview as a person whose photographs are way louder than words. They really do justice, and there is a certain connect that urges every viewer to try and converse, almost like you've defined your certain genre of minimalism in photography. So
Gosh, I don't
it
know if I'm
is.
worthy of such praise, but thank you.
So we just ran a poll on Instagram yesterday where we asked
Hmm.
two of our audience to ask questions if they'd like for you. So we've got a couple of questions for you from your fans. The first
Oh
one
God.
is, any photography trick or a pro trick up your sleeves that you like to share for all of the emerging photographers out there?
For emerging photographers, I don't know about tricks. I see, technically speaking, I am like at as base level as I can. I know exactly that much would help. So I am one of the least technically sound people you'd ever find. But what I would love to tell emerging photographers is that one thing that you absolutely must do is read. You must read about the current affairs. You must read about history. You must read about anything that you can find uh, in your way. Just read, just consume, just educate yourself, and be aware that you are situated within a context, and you are not you don't exist in your own silo. And so try to figure out what context you find yourself in, what areas you're placed within, and how you can work around that. My core belief is that to be a good photographer, the primary thing that we need to be is a good person, and to build our empathy. And so I would say to new photographers that the trick is to build empathy. Yeah.
Okay. Who is your inspirational photographer?
I have been going back to this answer for a long time. So I think the first photographers off the top of my head would be Prabodha Dasgupta, Sorab Hura, Nan Golden, Joseph Kudelka, and Sally Mann. They are
Okay.
people who have had the most amount of impact on my work, or the way I see things, I suppose.
Amazing. Any travel book or travel show that you're currently indulging in?
Currently, not currently, but I keep going back to No Reservations and Parts Unknown by Anthony Bourdain, which was also Anthony Bourdain was also one of the reasons why we did pick Georgia and Armenia.
Oh,
Yeah, so definitely anything that we can find on Anthony Bourdain always. Yeah.
and the last question, any specific style or preference surface that you prefer while printing your photographs?
So whenever I do sell prints, I just do them on archival paper. I think that's what works best for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And before
Mhm.
we wrap up, I've planned a really fun segment for you. It's a fun
Oh,
game
really?
called This or That, and I'll be giving you
Uh-huh.
two travel options, and then you just got to pick. It's like a rapid fire.
Done. Done.
So the first one is, would you prefer a road trip or a cruise?
Oh, road trip any day.
Okay. Northern lights in Iceland or sunrise from the Japanese rice terraces?
Wow. Northern Lights for sure. Yeah.
That's my favorite too. Travel wide or travel deep?
From whatever I gather from those two, I would say travel deep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crepes from Paris or dosas from South India?
Those sounds any day. Yeah.
Okay. Would you prefer to use a map or just walk aimlessly and explore places?
Um, my impulsive brain would say just go with the flow, but there's a rational part of my brain which would say that you should at least know your whereabouts. So while you all those who wander are not lost and all of that, it would be great if you really are not lost. So
Okay, so it's
wander
just
while knowing a little bit of your surroundings, I suppose. So
it's
maybe just
probably a
memorize the map and then go.
yeah, like a battle between the mind and the heart.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much, pretty much.
Okay. Okay. Would you go snorkeling or bungee jumping?
Man, neither, neither. Yeah.
So with this, we end our segment of Through the Photographer's Lens. I heartily thank Anurag for removing time and sharing such personal, insightful experiences with us. So I'm so glad that you came on board and shared these experiences to all our viewers. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I had really fun chat.
Also, for all our viewers, Through the Lens will be on display until Monday, 15th June. On display, we have prints by 10 photographers across the globe, across Bombay, across India rather, celebrating photographs of magnificent places across the globe. I'd really urge everyone to go and check out our catalog. It's available on our website. Also, part proceeds from the show will be donated to Give India Foundation to support the pandemic relief programs. If you have any further queries, please do write us on info@tawatgallery.com and we are happy to help you. Stay tuned for another episode of Through the Photographer's Lens, which is coming soon. Until then, take care and stay safe.